All right, veuillez vous lever. Please be seated. Pouvez-vous s'asseoir?
Mr. Ssona, you still have the floor.
Vos honneurs, Monsieur le Président.
Your Honor, Your Honours, I wanted to speak about certain testimony before the court. But before, I wanted to read to you or tell you what I think about the information sheets in our country. And I think one day, it was in 2015, I was invited by FIFA to go to Vancouver in Canada for the Football World Cup for women, which was played in Vancouver. I was there. And when I returned, I crossed the prosecutor, Sylvain Gressinguet, at the airport. But I greeted him without knowing that he was coming for an investigation concerning an information sheet. And about a week later, he called me to come to his office and said to me that after my departure, there was a sheet which had arrived with the president explaining that M Ngai had gone to see Bouzizi in Uganda in order to take arms and overthrow his government. But as he was at the airport, then he was able to see that I left Vancouver the same day to arrive in the morning. And immediately when he saw the airport documentation, he left and he went to see Madame Sangapanza. And I said to him, "Why do you keep speaking about Bouzizi?" And he said to me, "How do these sheets work in our country if people hate you? They can write things about you that you do not expect." And that's just an aside to explain what the situation is with regards to certain information sheets that exist. You have the Central African Republic press that speaks about me. And I was still in Paris when it was at the start of May. I wasn't in Cameroon, Your Honor. I now want to go into the testimony of Yim Katti. Your Honor, Your Honours, distinguished members of the court. Firstly, Katti is a soldier who was discharged from the National Army. He lives from rebellion to rebellion. He always tries to profit from a situation for his personal gain, including his testimony against me before this chamber. To give you an example, Katti came to see me in 2017 in my office at the Central African Football Federation to tell me that he had accepted to tarnish the reputation of the political opponent of the Touadéra regime, the president of the URCA, Mr. Anissé Georges Dologile. He had me listen to a secret audio recording that he had made of his conversation with Dologile. When I asked him, "You're doing that to gain what?" he answered me, "I'm going to provide it to the person behind it." I said, "Who?" "Sani Yellow." in exchange for a reward. And that is how Kokate functions. Mr. President, Your Honours, Kokate is a specialist in dirty work, as you have understood from the evidence in his case file and his involvement in the subordination of witnesses in the Bemba case, as the message, like the message that he sent to Boragoro to testify in favour of Bemba. Your Honours, distinguished members of the court, where it concerns Adrian Puu, I've already spoken about Puu earlier. I just want to make 3 brief comments, additional comments. In Bangui, in contrast to his testimony, Puu never saw my office in the Central African Football Federation, because everyone who comes to see me in my office knows that I have a very particular installation there, a very particular setup. And if it's the first time for somebody, they ask me where I bought my desk or where I got the installation of a giant television. And when he says 1 week of my trip to Paris, I was in a broadcast for a football program for longer than 2 hours, it's false. Because I left Kinshasa on the 4th of December 2018 to arrive in Bangui in the evening with the company Sky Airline. And furthermore, it's very rare for a football program to go longer than for 1 hour. I was not in Bangui during this period, where Kokora and Quack saw the light of day. I wanted already to explain to you that I was in Tokyo. I in no way participated in these organizations. And what Puu has said on the distribution of machetes is not true, Your Honor, Your Honours. Your Honour, I would like to address certain protected witnesses, and as such, I would ask if we could go into private session.
Yes, let's go to private session. Thank you for this, making us aware of that.
We're back in open session, Mr. President.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Your Honour, Your Honours. Where it concerns the P2002 and 2269, 2269, I do not know that person at all. I never saw him. He says that I sent him money. When? Why? Where is the discharge of the sum sent? Because he spoke about a lot of money. On what date? From which country, Your Honour, Your Honours? It's very easy to say, but where is the evidence? You will look for it and you will never find a telephone contact with this man, neither before or after or before the crisis.
I'm not his colleague, and how would I know this gentleman? And the same thing goes for P2602. He is a member of the CPC and is a public enemy of the Central African government, just as P2269 is. How can you think that he could go out and be at the disposal of the court? I have never worked with those two. How could the Central African authorities say that they cannot be found, whereas they had been kicked out of the ranks of the Central African Army and were being chased by the FACA and the Wagner troops? Mr. Presiding Judge, Your Honours, as for P0965, P0965 had been prepared to come and state in front of this court to say that he was an anti-Balaka resistant and a general secretary to P0306, whereas no one knows this man. Why this setup? It's for the following reason. P0306 had a name that was well known during the crisis. And if he spoke for P0306, that would give a lot of weight to his testimony in front of this very chamber. P0306 also came to state many things about my person that were untrue. As for P1719 and P2673, I do not know these two, Judge, Your Honour. It's the first time that I saw them here in this chamber. Even when I arrived in Bangui, I had never met them, neither physically or by name. And I am surprised by their statements and testimony before this chamber. You can check in all the documents on the resistance that I had provided to the international community and to the government. You will never see their names. And that is because they are unknown to me. Yes, in Cameroon, from time to time, there are certain Central Africans who would come to me with their problems, and I would help them, and that's all. If I had something on my person, then I would share it with them. I would give it to them. Your Honours and distinguished members of the court, when it comes to Jean-Jacques Demafoot. This is a highly dangerous man. He is capable of doing anything to achieve his ends. He was with the Seleka as a presidential advisor to Jatoja. How can you understand that he can work in good faith in order to bring peace to the country? He enjoys being where the trouble is. He likes getting people talking about him. He is the one who deceived Madame Catherine Samba Panza, who wanted who didn't want to know anything about the anti-Balaka resistance fighters, who are a resistance and survival movement. And it was among the ashes of this movement that she was given the opportunity to manage our country. Everything I've sent to the president to solve the problem of the resistance movement, he's the one who shot everything down with his multiple manipulations that delayed the return of peace to the Central African Republic. He also wanted to topple the president. Now, fortunately, many of his attempts failed. He had a group of rebels that he would use to misappropriate funds from a ledger during the transition. And he brought all his elements to Bangui, directed by the commander Massou, who had carried out rapes and crimes and pillaging in Bangui. And the anti-Balaka resistance got hold of him. And he was handed over to the gendarmerie, and Demafoot did everything in his power to get him released. Now, all these men, all these elements wore gris-gris, just like the anti-Balaka did. And it was hard to tell them apart. He instructed the president of the State Council to have me removed from the legislative election list after asking his wife, Madame Darlan, to invalidate my candidacy documents for the presidential election of 2015-2016. Judges, Your Honors, I am flabbergasted to see here that all those who have fun on Facebook stating different things, that all these statements are attributed to my person. I wonder if the people who are on Facebook, if these exchanges they had that were showed in the audience, are they in court? Are they my friends or are they my close associates? Or have I even been in contact with them at all? I would very much like that you see my exchanges with these people. In what way am I responsible for their thoughts? Is it because their words are counted as a fact? How is that linked to me? I am not the central server of social networks. Mr. Presiding Judge, Your Honors, I'd now like to talk to you about my transfer after my arrest. I was arrested at the international airport of Charles de Gaulle on the 12th of December at 5 a.m. as I exited the tunnel of the Air France plane coming from Bangui. This flight came via Yaoundé-Simalem. We had had a 2.5-hour stopover at Yaoundé. And on leaving the tunnel, I presented my passport, my diplomatic passport. I presented it to the security. And as I gave them my passport, I was asked to follow them. in the room, it was explained to me that the French justice, in collaboration with the International Criminal Court, had received an arrest warrant for me, and that they were obliged to arrest me. And on that day, my house was searched. I was then taken to the large prison at Fresnes in the 91st department. During all this time, I had no lawyer. It was only later that Mr. Lin Banukeper, a member of the Paris Bar Association, advised me. He explained to me that French justice was simply applying the international convention that had been signed with the International Criminal Court. And as I know nothing about these procedures, I followed his counsel. During the hearing that was held to decide whether or not I should be transferred to the ICC, I was stunned when the judge asked my lawyer whether he had any objections to the procedure at hand. And he took the floor in order to say that he would abide by whatever decision the judge would make. I was flabbergasted. On January 21st and 22nd, 2019, a team from the International Criminal Court came to see me in order to question me. On the first day, I answered their questions. On the following day, I informed them that I no longer wanted to continue. At a certain moment, I saw the prosecutor Kweku van der Puu arrive. He greeted me, and I said, "Thank you." And he asked me the following question: "Do you remember me?" I said, "Yes." Then he left. I was then accompanied back to the Fresnes prison around 2100, 9 p.m. And then, at midnight, they called me on the intercom, asking me to make arrangements, because I would be picked up at 4 a.m. to be taken to the ICC. I asked if my lawyer had been informed of this fact. And I was told that they knew nothing about this and that it was none of my business. At 4 in the morning, Your Honours, I was taken to Roissy Charles de Gaulle Airport. And then we left Charles de Gaulle in the direction of Amsterdam. When I arrived at Amsterdam Airport, there was a full security detail on the Amsterdam Airport runway. Even before I had gotten off the plane, I was dressed in a bulletproof vest with a belt with 2 crossed handcuffs, and my arms were immobilized at chest level. And I was held that way until I arrived at the detention center.
The ICC Detention Centre, Your Honours, Mr. President, distinguished members of the Court. I arrived at the ICC Detention Centre on the 23rd of January 2019 in the afternoon. I was received by the guards of the centre for security formalities before being received by Mr. Dubuisson. He was the first person from the registry to receive me on my arrival. And I noted when I arrived at the detention centre that there were various problems with regard to the applications of the regulations and rules of the centre. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I want to give you certain examples of what I suffered at the detention centre. I suffered a lot. I have suffered a lot during these 5 last years. Firstly, I would like to remind you of my right to go to fresh air on court days has not been respected to date. Secondly, Your Honours, the food that is served to me at the detention centre does not respect my culture, and I have to purchase myself the ingredients to feed myself. Often the quality and the price of the food that is purchased is not acceptable, and often I am not reimbursed with the amount for articles that are not delivered. The articles that we pay for here cost more than the normal price on the market. An investigation has been carried out in the detention centre, and experts have noted several problems with the price, the availability and the quality of various foods. However, the proposals made by the experts have gone unheeded for the most part. Thirdly, there is the question of family visits financed by the ICC. I have only had 2 main visits from my parents in 2022 and 2023. Even one part of my family here in Europe cannot visit me because they do not have the means to do so. But myself, Your Honours, I have 8 children. They are dependent upon me. I haven't seen most of them for 5 years, almost 6 years. What can I do, Your Honours? Several people depend on me, and these last 5 years I haven't been able to come to the help of those close to me and my community due to my detention. I would stress that some of my children and grandchildren have a low age. I have 7 grandchildren, between 1 and 5 years old. Some of them fall ill, and I am not able to meet their needs. You know that African families are very large, Your Honours. All my family depends on me. I am the sole pillar of the family, right down to the village. Fourthly, Your Honours, I have suffered considerably during the COVID-19 period, and in particular with the isolation that it caused. I have had hardly any contact with my family and the outside world during this period. Furthermore, the pandemic prolonged the trial as well as my detention. Finally, I would ask, Mr. President, Your Honours, that you use the powers you have under Regulation 94 of the Regulations of the Court, with a view to carrying out a judicial inspection of the detention centre on an impromptu basis, to get a feel for the reality in the field and to see with your own eyes what is happening. I know that you trust your colleagues, but there is a principle that says that trust cannot rule out inspection, Your Honour. By way of conclusion, Mr. President, Your Honours, the resistors called anti-Balaka. Concerning the resistors, anti-Balaka resistance, my role was to make these young people understand the need for peace. The sooner peace comes back to the country, the better it would be for their image as saviors of the nation. The more it would count in negotiations for their demands that I would bring on their behalf. I gave them advice to not give up in face of manipulations of opportunists who wanted to use them to reach their own goals, and I gave them advice for their life as well. By way of example, I told them, you know very well that the bullets that come out of barrels of guns do not try to find out who your parents are. And if you die, who will look after your children? You know very well that in our country, nobody can take charge of your children as you yourselves would do. Even your own brothers and sisters from the same father and same mother. And they have to know that other people cannot endure the blasting of weapons which can lead them to a cardiac arrest. Your Honour, Your Honours, the prosecutor has argued that I tried to profit from the anti-Balaka movement. Not only did I not profit from the movement, on the contrary, I sacrificed everything to represent this young group of desolate youth in accepting to become their interlocutor with the government and international bodies and working for peace in my country. When it comes to the accusations against me, I have to say that I never assisted or took part in any military action, whether it was the organization, financing, or supply of weapons, whether it was communication with anti-Balaka resistance. I was never involved in or contributed in any way to the movement of the resistance from Cameroon, nor involved in any way in the so-called inner circle. Your Honour, Your Honours, the government of transition, it's up to the transition government to take its responsibilities to bring back peace. I have done what I could so that the government can follow me in peace, but it didn't do it. It did not do its work. If the transition government had helped me in the will to achieve peace without prejudice towards my ethnicity, my region, and wanting to stick a label of Bozide before, so we would have finished by achieving reconciliation and peace, which could have come back very quickly. I have in my head a proverb which says, you should never throw the handle after the axe. Otherwise said, you should never get discouraged to bring peace to the country. And that is the way that I persevered until the elections of 2015, 2016. The idea that I tried to profit from the crisis is a mirage. There is no proof that I exploited anti-Balaka resistance. On the contrary, I sacrificed a lot for the return of peace. Mr. President, Your Honours, what I have lost and suffered. I understand, Mr. President, Your Honours, that the population in the Central African Republic has suffered a lot during the crisis. I also lost a lot during the crisis. Members of my family, those who stayed in Bangui and in my village in Nana Bakassa. More painful are the two deaths of my younger brother. In Douala, in Cameroon. Barnabe Ngai and Angel Ngai, I lost them because I did not have sufficient means to meet the needs of their health as I had done in Bangui in normal time, and my family company. The destruction of my warehouse and my villa, my warehouses on my private compound, and in my heart, I don't bear grudges towards anyone. And finally, I lost my father on the 15th of February 2024 in Paris after a short visit to the detention centre in 2023. Mr. President, Your Honours, I wanted to give you an insight into my vision and my thoughts with regards to peace and reconciliation in my country. If I am freed, I would like to take up again the work which I have started before my arrest for my country and for peace and reconciliation in the Central African Republic. And I would like to propose to the Central Africans my philosophy of a roadmap through my party with the vision that I have to help my country with a unified and indivisible people of all faiths. I wish that the PCUD, my party, be a pathway that will bring my country towards development and well-being of its people, which will lead the country towards lasting peace, which will lead its population towards reconciliation and cohabitation, which will lead Central Africans towards health for everybody, with the setting up of a vital card and care without needing money, which will lead towards education and professions with a good reform, which will bring the country towards total independence of justice and justice for everybody, and will bring Central Africans towards a clear improvement in their living conditions, towards the modernization of agriculture and livestock farming, which will lead to an improvement of the life of youth and the creation of work, the professionalization of sports, arts and culture, which will bring the country towards an active and win-win diplomacy. The future of the Central African Republic depends on all the sons and daughters, the peace-loving sons and daughters of the country, and on its development. Your Honours, Mr. President, I cannot finish my words without asking you to take into account everything that I have suffered, and that it be taken into account by your chamber. My life is in your hands, and in your hands is also that of my family and all Central Africans who love truth and justice. Your Honours, I have a huge amount of respect for your chamber, and I hope that nobody will ever be placed in my position and the position I was in 2013-2014. My prayer is that Almighty God, the Creator, grants you wisdom, protects you, and leads you to the manifestation of truth, because truth is something that nobody can hide. The truth is like smoke that comes from a fire that nobody can hide. May the Almighty God be with you. You give you wisdom, protect you for justice to triumph. Mr. President, Your Honours, I will read a quote of a former president. The deceased Patassi said that lies go very quickly, but truth takes its time to slowly crush the lies. Put differently, truth is a light that cannot be hidden. It will finish by triumphing. It's also said that however long the night lasts, the sun will appear. One wants to hide the truth, but it will always come out in the end. And I empathise with all the victims of the crisis in the CAR, and I agree that the victims deserve justice. But is it really justice if an innocent person is convicted? I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Mr. President, Your Honours, for your long patience. May God bless the court. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ssona. This concludes today's hearing. The court is adjourned.
All rise, vous pouvez vous lever.